What's up, guys? Hope you've been taking care, having new experiences, learning new things. Today, I kind of want to talk about nature and getting you some nature. So for me, I love nature. Probably my favorite way to like balance myself. Balance my moods, get my energy up, just become better. And I've had some experiences, like some pretty cool experiences with nature. Animals come up to me a whole bunch. I've had a whole bunch of interactions with like squirrels, hummingbirds, dogs, just birds, snakes, anything. Like nature's just nature's just really cool. And so for me, some of my early experiences with it was back in April or May. I can't remember which month comes before June, but like April or May, whatever month before June, I moved out to Big Bear with my friends. So it was five of us living in some log cabin, and there was a forest down the street. And so I would walk by myself every day, just about, and walk down into this forest and go meditate by in the like literally by these giant pine trees, by whatever plants. And I would go sit there for an hour or two, just meditate. And after I'd be finished, I just walk up to a tree, and I literally like just put my hand on it, and they'd tell me things. Like I would have ideas that popped in my head that made a lot of sense. I could feel the energy coming off of them. I remember I meditated once, and I saw these two trees growing like right next to each other, like these two branches, and I was like, huh, that's like funny. I wonder what that's all about. So I put my hand on it, and the tree told me that like they were in love. Like the two trees were growing together because they were in love. And another thing that happened was like, a couple of days later, I meditated something, put my hand on this giant pine tree, and just like that, it clicked for me that Greek mythology is like based in truth but isn't truth itself. So for Greek mythology, the whole thing about it was like the earth, the life came about because first there was chaos, and then that brought about Gaia, which is the earth, and that brought Titans. And the Titans, Kronos, his son, was Zeus, who brought about the Olympians, who then ruled. So it was like this generational power that just kept getting passed down through generation. And so I put my hand on this tree, and this was like right after I dropped out of school, and it just hit me. Like I just had the thought, and it made a lot of sense that the story of like Greek mythology is all true and all real, except not in the way that I was taught or how I was told, because I took a Greek mythology class at UCSB. And so what was real about it was like, so it's true that like the earth guy came about, and then the Titans came, and then the gods came. But what the tree told me was that the Titans are the trees. They've been here so forever. Like that giant tree has been there for what, like 100 years or something. And so the trees are the Titans that came from the earth, Gaia, and then we came about, the gods. And like we have more power than the trees because that generational structure that was based in Greek mythology. Except for us, like we're gods, and our power, our domain, because each god has their own different domain where they rule over. Our domain is our own lives. Like that is what we rule, and we have full control over it. Each one of us has full control over our own lives. And so that's like one thing that the trees taught me. And I don't know, like nature is just cool. Like I recommend you get some. I like there's no other way to really put it. Even if you don't have access to nature, like I'm super blessed. I'm super thankful that I could just skateboard over, like walk over, and like have access to stuff like this. But if you don't, then I'd recommend like even getting like a plant, like a little tree, a little plant, whatever. Have it in your room. Take care of it, water it, and just hang out with it. Like literally, if you meditate with it, I guarantee like you could have a conversation with it if you just keep it open mind enough. And if you're like able to sense energy, like if you put in that work to like align your heart chakra to the point where you become empathetic and like you're more sensitive to energy, you could have conversations with it and you could talk to it. I've had full conversations with like trees, but it's just like the way that I do it is I'll talk to it with like I'll put a thought out like, yo, what's up? And then just like that, like the first thing that pops back into my mind, I recognize that to be the energy coming off the tree, because as humans, we communicate with words. Like words are just frequencies that we make with our mouth, but they're low frequencies at that. And it's like a lower efficient, not it's a less efficient way of communication because it's lower frequencies. I've had it where I've had higher beings communicate to me through images. And I've read a book of a dude who talked about his out of body astral projection experiences, and he was saying like in the astral realm he came across his spirit, like one of his spirit guides who was watching him, who was hiding, and like he ended up coming across him because he confronted him. And the guy was like freaking out, but then his spirit guide put a whole bunch of images in his mind to calm him down. And so like there's way more different ways of communicating other than just speaking in language, because I mean we were taught that that's it, like speaking in language is how we communicate, but there's way more ways. Like I've been communicated to through images. I remember I was on a bunch of acid one day and I was sitting in the back seat of my friend's car, and out of nowhere, like my consciousness just launched to somewhere else. Like all I saw was just black and like this film of green light, like that was frequency that was bouncing. It looked like sound waves, like like when you listen to music or for certain sound waves, it's like all bouncy and waves. It literally just looked like that. And so I went out there for a little bit and snapped back into the back seat. And I look at my friend, like I was like, whoa dude, like I just found the key to the universe. He's like, what is it? I'm like, good vibes, good energy. And good energy is the key, like one of the keys to life. And to this day, like I still believe that with all my being. Like I haven't been proved wrong, and that's just what I believe. And I was communicated, I was like that was communicated to me through an image. So yeah, like back to the original thing, like you could communicate with animals, plants, anything around you. You just have to get creative with it. Like animals and plants aren't going to understand your words, but if you put out that thought, if you put out that intention's everything. Like intention, it has a lot of power that nobody even recognizes. But if you put out that intention to communicate with with it, it will like find a way to communicate back. So yeah, just get some nature. Like you could learn things from trees, plants, animals. Think about it, like trees have been here for so much longer than we have, so they must have way more information than us. And I was reading a concept that said trees are kind of like logs, not logs, but like note takers, and they keep log of everything that's here. Like that's their job. They're kind of libraries, and they're here to just record information and log stuff down. So if that's true, if they're just libraries, we could tap into that at any time, and we could have so much like access to so much more knowledge. Another thing too is like laws. There's laws of nature that are so fundamental to the universe, so fundamental to everything. If you think about it, like the geniuses that we were taught in school learned a lot of stuff through the laws of nature. Nikola Tesla is like, we didn't learn about him in school, but he's like one of the like he's a brilliant mind. Like he said, if you wanted to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And Einstein, like let's think about like Newton. So Newton, his whole theory of gravity, which is just a theory to begin with. Gravity is not a real thing, so to say, but like the theory of gravity explains kind of a systematic way of things function. But he just found out about it by literally, we were told like he slept under an apple tree and had an apple fall on his head, and then that's like boom, when the thought occurred to him. But if he wasn't out with a tree, if he wasn't out with nature, he wouldn't have learned shit. Like he wouldn't have learned anything. And so yeah, like you could literally learn a lot. There's different mathematical equations that I've learned. You could like I don't know if you could look it up, because I can't even remember the name of it, but it was like algorithmic. I can't remember if it was geometrical or like exponential. It was a function that had a growth rate of 3, and it would be like one branch, and then it branched out to two, then this two to four, then this four to eight, and just keep going and going and going, and it actually like simulated and looked just like how trees grew, like this, like one, and then two, and then two to four, and stuff like that. So there's a lot that you can learn from nature just by observing. Nature is one of the biggest teachers that we have. It's like it's just here, so we might as well learn from it. like like I don't even know how to put it any other way, but we could learn a lot just from observing. Like when I thought about this a while ago, nature is imperfectly flawless. Not all berries will look alike, like each berry will have its own little different features. It will look different. Each leaf will look different, but none of them none of them fail to function exactly how they're designed. They all function perfectly. They all fit into their ecosystems perfectly, come about, and this whole cycle, like they come about, they die, and then they get morphed into new things. And so nature doesn't all look the same. It doesn't all look perfect, but it all is flawless. So there's a difference between like being perfect and flawless. Perfect is like a concept that we kind of created that doesn't even really exist. If you wanted to see perfect, like this is it, like this is as perfect as it gets, because everything is flawless. Nothing fails to work the way that it should. And so that's why I think we could learn a lot about nature. Everything works exactly how it was intended. So if we just observe it, see some laws that it obeys, see how it actually does that, we might be able to take out some information and apply it to our own lives. I can't really think of an example right now about how I've done that. Oh yeah, yeah. Here's one. So same thing. I was out in Big Bear, and these two giant pine trees were growing. They had about like, what is it called? They had trunks. Yeah, they had trunks that were like 10 feet wide. Like they were massive pine trees, and there were two of them growing literally like 5 feet apart. Like they were right next to each other, and it caught my attention. And it was right after I meditated for like an hour or two. So I was like, whoa! And I asked him, I'm like, how do you guys grow so big and so ginormous right next to each other? Like, shouldn't you guys naturally be competing for resources, and shouldn't one have more resources than the other? And so I asked him and put my hand on it, and I just let the energy flow. And they told me, they're like, we share our resources. So not one hogs it and not the other hogs it, but they both use their combined roots and resources. I mean, not they both use their combined like roots and their efforts to share resources, so they both grow giant together. Like that's one thing that I learned. Greed is kind of deadly. Like if you look at a plant and leaf, I mean not a, but like if you look at a plant and you overwater it, let's say, and it's in a pot, so its roots can't distribute that water, it dies. Like too much water of what it like water is what it needs, but too much of it will kill it, literally. So when we have greed in our souls, it kind of damages us and like harms us. So that's why these trees telling me to share and like their sharing allowed them to prosper and grow giant, made me realize like, oh well, like sharing is really important, and I need to focus more on sharing. And so like that's one example. Like whenever I have to, or whenever I water flowers in like my backyard or like whatever plants, I literally just pay attention to how they live and how they are, because they're perfect. They're not perfect, but they're flawless, I should say. And I wanted to see like what makes them flawless and how I could apply that to myself. So that's why I think it's super important to get out, get some nature, because like we are nature at the end of the day. Like we're just animals. Like as humans, these bodies, we're just animals. We're like basically the same thing as like the squirrels or the rats or dogs or whatever. We just have different functions, different capabilities, but we fundamentally come from like the same place, and we'll fundamentally go back to the same place, and we're just all one big part of nature. And so yeah, I guess that's it. um Stay positive, stay highly vibrational, and better yourselves, keep working on yourselves, experience new things, go out, push yourself outside of your comfort zone. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, then do it. You know, like, everyone wants to do what's easy for them, and then they wonder why they never grow or their life never gets better. So do what's difficult for you, challenge yourself, go out of your comfort zone and grow, because discomfort is the only way you'll ever grow. You won't grow if you stay in the same comfort zone, the same place, doing the same thing. But yeah, that's it. Till next time, peace, family.